Every language is just a series of logic and rules that can be used to express any idea that you could possibly imagine. Now, this set of rules is called grammar, but it's much more than just nouns and verbs. It's the foundation of every language in the world. Understanding these concepts makes mastering any language in the world so much easier because you can relate things in your target language back to your native language much easier. With that, I'm Zachary, and let's dive in.
All right, so today we're talking about something that has really been the bane of my existence and many students' existence in so many languages, so many times, all the time. I hate this topic, to be just perfectly frank with you, but it exists, and if you're going to learn a lot of languages, or even one language, it depends on the language, but if it applies to your language, you need to understand it. Grammatical cases. Now, in German, it certainly applies. In Czech, Russian, Ukrainian, it certainly applies. They do technically exist in any language. It's just in some languages, I've noticed typically in Germanic and Slavic languages, they play a much more pronounced role and pose a very unique challenge for people who may not be familiar with it. But enough blabbing, let's get into it. So as I've mentioned in a couple videos before, grammatical cases have everything to do with the specific function of specific pieces of the sentences and questions that you pose to various people or just in your language. I'll go over 7 that I've noticed, and these 7 apply in Czech, 4 of them apply in German, but these 7 are not an exhaustive list, and I do not want you to assume that I'm telling you everything that you could possibly ever need to know about cases. I'm just trying to make a quick 5-minute maximum video about it. So the 7 that I'm going to go over here are nominative, accusative, dative, genitive or genitive, however you choose to pronounce it, locative, instrumental, and vocative. Don't take what I'm saying as grammarian university type answers. This is as I understand it, and I hope it is relatable to you as well. So the nominative case is whenever you're speaking about something in the infinitive form, normally the subject of a sentence. You typically don't have to make any or at least many changes. The changes that you might have to make are simple in this one, so I wouldn't stress about it too much. Accusative is whenever you're talking about the direct recipient of an action. So if I am reading my book, I am directly impacting my book by reading it. In many languages, that's how that logic flows. Dative is whenever you're speaking about indirect recipients of action. So it could be that you're going to a place. That might be dative if you're doing something for something. So you're like, I am reading this book for you in other videos. I am reading the book directly. Indirectly, it is for you. By proxy, you are hearing the book because I am reading it aloud. That's the kind of logic that flows there. Genitive is possessive. This is my book. These are my things. But that form of possession can take different forms in certain languages, which would take the genitive case. Locative, I've only noticed this in Czech so far, but I know it exists in, I think, Latin and in Russian too. Anyway, locative, what it is whenever you're speaking about the location of something. I'm not perfectly clear, I can't recall directly on how it applies in Czech, but it's like if you're talking about at something or something is going to somewhere, then you would use the locative case. I think so. Instrumental is whenever you're talking about something that serves a specific function or purpose. Whenever you're using something as an instrument, in some languages, it will take the instrumental case. And vocative, whenever you are invoking somebody. So if I am addressing you correctly, Jeff, if that's you, Jeff would have to take a specific ending on his name, at least I've noticed in Czech, to be correct.
Hey, so I'm editing this right now, and I realized I didn't say at all that if you're finding this helpful, I wrote about this and so much more in this little book right here, and I have this adapted to Spanish right here. I'm working on other languages too, though. Let me know if there's a certain language you want me to cover in a book in a comment down below, but these are on Amazon. Check them out. Back to the video.
Now, again, this is not an exhaustive list. These are just 7 that I've noticed, and I've only noticed that they've applied to German and Czech so far. So don't think that you have to know this for Spanish and French and Mandarin. So it's not globally applicable. It might be in your target language. I don't know what it is you're learning, but you're here for cases. So I hope this helps. Cases don't just apply to 1 or 2 things usually. When cases play a role in your language, expect to find them in pronouns, in adjectives, in nouns, in adverbs, in several different parts of speech. So basically, if you have to learn cases for your language and you've never had cases before, expect it to be hell and hate every second of it, but it's going to be incredibly useful and rewarding whenever you do get through it. And I promise that you will get through it, okay? And at least in German, there are 4 cases that apply in German. This is to kind of encourage you after saying it's going to suck and be awful. In German, if you were to break it down in a table, you'll see that there are like 40 something different endings for an adjective based on the case and the gender and the quantity. And yes, I could say that there are dozens and dozens of ways to end your pronouns and your adjectives and your adverbs, and you have hundreds of things to learn just so you can say that you have a yellow book. Like, yeah, okay, I could scare you away from German like that by saying it's so hard, but really, if you look at German and you look at the cases and that, they're really like 4 different options for endings. I have a table for this. I broke it down and I was like, oh wow, 80% of grammatical declension, of changing for cases in German, is the same ending. So don't think that it's, all awful. A lot of it can be simple. In Czech, not so much. So if you're learning Czech like me, I'm sorry, but even still, it's very regular. Don't expect irregularities. So when you learn a pattern, when you learn a case, you got it, okay? You just have to work on recognizing the case. So it isn't all that bad, I promise. I really hope this is helpful. Let me know if it wasn't, what I could have done better. And if you have any more questions about cases, because there's a litany of stuff to go over in cases, it can be rather confusing, certainly always challenging, especially if you're new to it. But I digress. Enough of me blabbing. This is supposed to be 5 minutes, not 7 or 8. Thank you so much for watching, for listening. I really appreciate it, and I hope I will see you in the next one.